Hi, everyone. It's Penny here, and welcome to Looking Out and Up. I'm Penny,
And I'm Les.
and what are we talking about today?
Uh, it looks like our topic is going to be modern day management, making your life harder. Penny.
Life's hard enough.
Well,
It's getting harder every day, and
well, for some folks, I'm sure life is plenty hard enough. I don't really consider my life all that terribly difficult or hard, but yeah. So what I want to do this week is that we always try to finish this like on a positive note and give people kind of some feedback as to, maybe with our life experience, the boomer and the Xer together, maybe we can come up with some sort of solution or help you navigate the waters. But I'm here to tell you, folks, the takeaway this week is you're working for idiots. Most people that are going into work every day, and if you're like me and you're actually doing physical labor, you're not sitting in a management cubicle somewhere. You probably are all well aware that for the most part you're working for idiots. You're working for people who either have their job because of nepotism. um, they've inherited that job. They're working for their brother-in-law, they're working for their father, they're working for their sister. Somehow it's some sort of family situation. um,
that's what nepotism is.
yeah, nepotism is, I don't know that it necessarily has to be related, but it's people who are picked because of friendships or have a leg up. It's not based on qualifications.
Oh,
It's simply
okay.
based on who you know. And that's always been the case to a degree. But I think today we're seeing, I think it's getting worse, Penny. I think the quality of people who are in management, first of all, the vast majority of these people have a college degree in something. I don't even know that it's got to be necessarily related to the business. I've worked for numerous people who the only way that you were going to be in the office or that you were going to be doing something, in a cubicle and managing people is if you had a degree. That degree could be anything from basket weaving to a liberal arts degree. It really wouldn't matter. But this seems to be kind of the prevailing thought or kind of the prevailing way that the world works. Um, you're finding people with almost no real life experience, and I think that this is detrimental. This has become way detrimental or incredibly detrimental to the American workforce, the quality of American goods. Um, it's so.
But it's more detrimental to the smaller businesses.
Oh, I don't think it's necessarily more detrimental to the smaller businesses. Just that it's probably easier to see on a day to day basis. But there is a lot of, and don't get me wrong, folks out there. I realize that it's always been a little bit about who you know, um, versus necessarily your qualifications all the time. But it has gotten to the point in this country where it is bad. And I would like to give people, we always like to say, hey, how can you improve your situation? Well, the only thing that I can think of to actually offer people here is you're either going to work for idiots or you're going to have to deal with idiots, right? If you go off and start your own company, you're going to have to deal with the idiots that you were being bossed around by, which may be a better situation for some folks. I mean, Penny and I have both run our own kind of small businesses. We've had our sidelines. Penny much more so than I have. We've always had kind of other things going on other than just working for other people, and maybe that's the best solution at this point. But you've been out of the workforce for a little while, not a long time, but a little while. It hasn't been crazy, but you've actually been able to kind of step back, and you don't have to deal with it so much on a day to day
Thank
basis.
God.
What about your experiences with management? I mean, I still deal with them on the daily. What has been your experience of dealing with
It
management?
explains a lot of things when you find out how they got that person above you, got their position, because here you are at work and you're doing things that it's just idiotic. And then when you find out how the person got their position, it explains everything.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It explains all the management.
Having a job for 6 months and going, man, something here just is not right. What is going on that these people are incapable of making day-to-day decisions, but major decisions as far as the direction of a company, trying to solve minor issues within the company, and it seems like everybody in the management area is incapable of making that decision. Well, if you stick around long enough, or if you ask the right questions, I think more often than not, you're going to find out exactly why people are incapable of making those decisions or not wanting to make those decisions. They have no life experience in making those decisions. They're scared to make a wrong decision, and they are not qualified to even be balancing the positives and the negatives of the decision. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, easy for you to say. You hear this a lot. Management. The retort to me always was, well, why don't you do their job? Well, there's a reason that I don't do their job. The reason that I don't do their job is because I was in management from a very young age. I was actually in management by the time I was 19, 20 years old. I was the youngest manager for a nationwide company or for a national company. It didn't take long to find out that at that management level, the people above you were playing different angles. There were a lot of games being played, everything from, who was going to sleep with who in the office to who wanted to go the furthest, within the company and what they were willing to give up to do that. That was the game that was kind of being played back then. There was the sleep around end of it.
It's still being played now.
Well, it still is, but I'm saying I think maybe it was to a lesser degree, and maybe those people that I was dealing with even back then at 19 and 20 years old, 21 years old, I think the vast majority of the people, even though they were skewed a little bit in their worldview from what my worldview was, I think most of them were at least qualified for the positions they had. They may have been taking advantage of those positions. They may have been using those positions for their own gain, but they were qualified to have the positions. They had the work experience. They had done things. They had proven themselves out. But I don't know what to say in the last 10 years. The quality of the management in this country is horrendous. It's I don't think it's fixable. And like I say, I think you can view this, most folks, for years I was very much buy American, try to buy American products, try to buy American goods, and I think it's kind of like the old stereo systems. Back in the day, they created there was this company called Nakamichi, and they had the greatest sound system or sound equipment available, or some of the best. And lo and behold, as time went by, they kind of introduced a bargain basement model, but it still had the Nakamichi name on it. And you saw this with other companies, Sanyo, stuff like that. And they started I'm sure other people were actually producing their lower end stuff, and they were slapping their name on it. And what's happened, as far as I know, what's happened 90% of all those companies is they're out of business. Lo and behold, they're out of business. Because they were going to use their name, they were going to use that name to attract you in, and you were expecting a high quality product, and yet when you received the lower end of that from that company, you didn't receive a high dollar product. All of this is a long way of me saying American products are not, in general, in this day and age, are not better than products that you can buy from other places around the world. Sometimes they may be if you get in with a company.
And it has to do with
poor management. It has to do with people you've either got bean counters, you've got people who are just simply running numbers, and quality is, I want to say secondary. It's probably not secondary. It's somewhere fourth, fifth down the line of importance. And management has all been wooed over by this, and people all think that it's always about how much per item you're making. Every last penny. I'm selling something for $100, and I would like to get $35.78 for that item, rather than building that product and selling it for $150 and getting $37 for that product. Getting more in your pocket, but spending a little bit more to have a quality product. Anyway, all of this to say is that the mismanagement, the way that companies are run today, has resulted in lesser quality products. I'm going to tell all of you this. This could be a whole nother podcast in and of itself. The quality of customer service, helping you after a purchase is almost non-existent.
And this all has to do with modern management.
This is all 100% modern management. Yeah. You know, we look at how many times you have to call someplace and, oh, the current hold time is 27 minutes. And it doesn't matter what time of the day you call. You are not important after you've made a purchase. That's just all there is to it. But yeah, so what this all kind of gets back to is, yes, I don't know how to explain to our listeners out there, but first of all, the very amount of college degrees out and about, people with them running around, has greatly diminished the value of that degree and the quality of that degree. Universities want as many people to attend, and of course, people only attend to graduate, so you come out the other end of this and you've got a degree. No real work experience, no real idea of what you're doing, and yet you are brought in someplace. And this kind of gets back to we've talked about it in the past, maybe not on the podcast, but Penny and I have talked about it quite a bit, the whole fake it till you make it thing. They come in and they're going to pretend to know what they're doing long enough to either get fired or disappear, and people really disappear into the network, and people kind of forget that they're even there. They spend their whole time in their office. They're not really out amongst, the working folks. And if there's any managers out there listening, I'm going to tell you right now, there's no such thing as leading from the office. Everybody thinks, the modern society allows us to have cameras everywhere, and we can view what the people are doing. We can view what our employees are doing. Well, you can view what people are doing, but you still have to be out and about, touching grass, out on that company floor, talking to people, figuring out what their issues are. This is a huge disconnect in management today, right? We have people who, they think that things are a certain way simply because they're reading a spreadsheet. They don't go out and actually deal with the people who are making the products, or on a daily basis are engaged in having to get the product from this point to this point, and what the issues are, what the hiccups are. And more often than not, when those issues are raised, most management that I see today runs back into the office and buries their head in the sand. As an example for everybody out there, so I work for a small local company here, and they're growing. They have a lot going on, but because of a lot of confusion and because things are not really laid out, there's not really standard operating procedures in place, there's a lot of questions that arise. There's a lot of questions from the people out on the floor actually producing the product. And the management that I work for, they thought that the best case scenario, the best solution to this problem with people coming into their office and bothering them with questions about what was going on the floor was to put up a keypad to get into the offices so that they would not be bothered by the people coming in off the floor. That is American management in a nutshell.
So they put up the door to block people from coming in and telling them their concerns about what's going on the floor.
Yeah, having questions, because like I say, they're currently, this is I see this often. If you go into a business, if you go into a company and you start working there, they're going to tell you that they have standard operating procedures. But if your eyes are open and you're paying attention, 95% of all companies do not have true standard operating procedures. They have things that they have an idea of how they would like things to go, but you can do this if this happens. You can do this if this happens. That's not a standard operating procedure. A standard operating procedure is we do this and we do this every time, all the time. This is how it works. And when it's not working, we need to stop what we're doing and figure out how to make it work so that we can have a standard operating procedure. And this again gets back to the management just simply being lazy and complacent. And well, there's probably a
Don't
number
know
of
what the
things.
hell they're doing.
That's the
Faking
biggest
it.
thing. They are either lazy, they're complacent, or they really have no clue. They're in the dark, and they don't want to have to write. You and I both worked for a company years ago. It was a Japanese company, this has been to my benefit for my entire working life. That really, it was the second real serious job I had. Um, I had worked I'd worked on farms when I was young. I'd been a dishwasher in a little local restaurant and stuff. But stepping out and actually being an adult and going to work, we were very fortunate. This is how Penny and I actually met years ago. Um, but we went to work for a company that was Japanese owned, and
Japanese owned.
yes, and
Right there.
it was run like a well-oiled machine. It was they had a standard operating procedure for everything. You did not sway one way or the other. This is how things are done. They are done this way all the time, every time. Lo and behold, at this company eventually we stay there for a number of years, but the company winds up being sold to a British firm. Then it wound up in the Americans' hands, and I guess that should have been my first cue then about American management, because all of a sudden the quality of the product, the quality even of the employees.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, it fell dramatically. It was not the same type of place to work, 7 or 8 years after we had started. By the time it was being sold out, it was no longer the same place to work. And management was everything. Management was the beginning of the downfall for that company. So now people can ask, well, what do you do? Okay, great. Management sucks. Well, this is one of those things where unfortunately I don't have a real solution for people. You're either going to suck it up, buttercup, and just realize that you're working for people who are either lazy, incompetent, or just dumb, just stupid.
Idiots.
Yeah, just stupid.
Yes.
And I hate
So
to
what do
say
you
that.
know? So what I just think I'm going to work
Mhm.
to make money
Mhm.
because where I live, I need money to pay my bills.
Mhm.
So that's how I would start viewing it. It's just a form of income, and I'll deal with you idiots until I have a firmer or a clearer vision of which route I should take.
Well, and I'm going to tell people out there who are intimidated to. There's a lot of people probably sitting on the fence who are intimidated to want to start their own business, and I'm here to tell you, folks. You are capable of starting your own business. I have worked for just some real incompetent folks, and yet they're succeeding. I always used to joke that they're succeeding despite themselves, right? I don't know how they're doing it. Most of them, I actually do know how some of them are doing it. They bought successful companies, and this is kind of back to the stereo thing. They're riding that wave. Now, how long they can ride that wave, how long they can continue to turn a profit or to increase the size of the company. And I'm not working for Fortune 500 companies, and they don't sell stock, so they're sole proprietorship, so they're small S corporations, stuff like that. But how long can they survive? Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know. I think one thing that's working to some of their advantage is I work in the food industry. Um, and that has shrunk and shrunk as far as the ability to get a product that you want made a certain way. There's not a ton of people here, at least locally by us, that provide that service. So you're kind of a shoe-in for a certain amount of the market, right? You're kind of the only game in town. There's nobody else who. But I think that at least with what I do, I think if a young person, an enterprising young person who wanted to actually, pursue that line of work, could easily show up and outdo the company that I work for. It wouldn't be all that difficult. It wouldn't be difficult for some 30-something or 20-something even, I don't know, but who has their head on straight and has the the insight to customer relations and quality products, I don't think it would be all that difficult to run my business, the business that I work for. I don't think it would be all that difficult to run them out of town. Just my own opinion. So, Penny? I don't know. You've been awfully quiet this episode.
I'm usually listening to you. I'm just listening to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know there wasn't a word for it where you got the job that you did through connections.
Yeah. Yeah, I think nepotism, when people use that term, I think it's generally referring to family. That the old man started the business and his son or his grandson now runs it. And no matter what they did, they were going to run it. It wouldn't matter how bad they were at what they were doing.
Well,
they were going to inherit the business.
It reminded me of the time I started working for my grandfather. Right? So then, when I got old enough, I gained the head training position to open up the new establishment.
Yeah. Nepotism. See, you're a nepo baby.
I didn't know.
Oh my God, I'm dealing with it at home too.
No, but I didn't realize there was a name for it. But I knew that's why people thought that I had gotten this position.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't realize that I got it because I was qualified. Because
but nepotism doesn't mean that somebody's not qualified, dear. It doesn't mean that somebody's not qualified. It just means that in this particular instance, you were a recipient of nepotism. You would not have walked in there at your age and wound up with that job. It was highly unlikely. You were within the family, but your grandfather was kind of an old school guy, and I'm assuming that your quality of work spoke for itself, and we're all going to think that, I guess, if we're the recipients of, if we're nepo babies. But I have never had that. I don't even think I've ever really gotten a job because of who I knew.
But I must have done a good job because we always did well. And
the company is still in business.
And we were like family.
And the company is still in business.
And everybody that I knew was just always nice and friendly and funny. And
is the company still in business?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Well, the company's still in business, but I believe it's been...
The family is sold out.
Yes.
Okay. Didn't have any more nepo babies to pass along to.
No.
Okay.
But I didn't realize that was the term. There was a word for it. Okay.
You're 60 plus years old. You didn't know there was a word for
62.
You didn't know the term nepotism?
No.
Oh, all right. Well, okay. Well, English is not her first language, folks. So.
Okay.
So, any positive that do you have a positive that we can leave on? I'm going to tell you, you know what? I have found a positive since we've been having this discussion, this wide open discussion. Folks, if you are driven, if you care about customer service, if you have a good head on your shoulders, can make capable of making decisions, living with the consequences
financial decisions.
Well, and living with the consequences of those decisions, being able to zig when maybe other people are zagging, you're capable of thinking on your feet, fixing issues. The world is your oyster. That's the good news, because you're not going to be outclassed by 85 or 90, maybe even a higher percentage than that of American businesses. Folks, if you have the drive to do it, you have the idea, and you've got a good head on your shoulders. Men, women, young folks out there, I'm telling you right now, the world is your oyster. So there's your positive for the week. Are we signing off now?
Yes. And remember that life's not going to get better.
You get better. Oh, before you hit that stop button, we always want to ask people to like and to subscribe and to ask us questions in the comment section. I don't know that we ever really ask people to do that. Put a comment down there if you agree with what we're saying, if you strongly disagree. Maybe you're in management, you got some really choice words for me. So, anyway, folks, we'll see you soon.